Hey, hey, good evening, Facebook. Good evening, Instagram. Thank you all so much for joining me on my weekly Thursday night live. I really do appreciate you all tuning in and just rocking with me every week. And I know I'll have some people coming in, but I just want to really introduce myself for those who don't know who I am, who's never heard of me. This is your first time joining me. My name is Tonya Carter, and I'm a relationship transformation coach, and I specialize in relationship recovery. Okay, because my goal is to really help women evolve, and transform their mindset so that they can thrive relationally, in their personal and professional lives. But I really hone in on the breakup and the divorce recovery process, because one thing that I realize about relationships, that they really are a key foundation of how we survive in life, or even how we thrive through it. And how we manage these relationships are extremely important to our overall quality of life. And that's why I do what I do. Okay. And so tonight's topic is breaking your own heart. Okay. Facebook, give me a thumbs up. Jennifer, let me know if you can hear me on Facebook. So tonight's topic is breaking your own heart. And is that really something that you do? And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because when a relationship dissolves, it can cause a lot of heartbreak, right? Like, that's just the facts, right? And it can leave a person to believe the worst. Really, it can cause them to believe the worst about themselves. It can cause them to believe the worst about life, and even about other people. You know what I mean? However, with that heartbreak, it can also result in an individual breaking their own heart unknowingly. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that we don't really think about. And when I say unknowingly, that means that sometimes we're just not even aware that that's what we're doing. We don't even realize that we're really breaking our own heart. And for those who've been following me, I say this all the time about my own life. I was stuck in my story for half the decade. Okay, so we're talking 2010 to 2015, half of the decade. I was literally stuck in my story. It was like I was physically out of something, but mentally and emotionally, I was still married to it. I was still attached to it. I still had a relationship with something from my past. And it caused me to do things that, I'm not going to lie, I'm not proud about. It caused me to do things that was really out of my character. It caused me to suffer longer than what I should have. And there were times where I knew better, but I didn't do better. And then there were also things that I just didn't know, right? And I wasn't aware of. And so I wanted to talk about this tonight because we're approaching July, right? Next week will be July 1st. And we're already gotten into 6 months of the new year. And what I find in many people is that, within this 6 months, a lot of people are stagnant. Okay. And this is how I was, but I was like this for 5 years. And what I realized is that until I detach myself from my old story, this is when I stopped breaking my heart. And so I want to go over 3 reasons today, because I'm going to get right into it today. I'm going to give you guys 3 reasons on how you could be breaking your own heart, because many of you sometimes don't even realize that that's what you're doing, because you've been in a cycle, it's been normalized, and you've disguised this is how it's just going to be. Right. And so I want to kind of enlighten you and awaken you tonight to see if this really applies to you. Okay. And so I want you guys to type it below. Y'all know how I roll. Every time when I give you guys a point, I want you to type it below in the comments, because I want to make sure you're following me. So one reason on how you could be breaking your own heart is because, truthfully, you have not learned the importance of loving yourself just yet. Okay. That's number one. Okay, it's no particular order. I'm just saying that this is the first reason. The first reason on how you could be breaking your heart is because you really haven't learned the importance of loving yourself just yet. See, here's the thing, and I'm going to be honest with you all. I'm very convinced that, based upon how many people live their lives, it's a result of how they truly feel about themselves. That's what I'm convinced about. And let me be clear when I say this, because I'm not referring to money, right? Because people go there. I'm not referring to money. I'm not even referring to labels. I'm not even referring to education. It's more about how you value yourself. It's more about how you value others and how you allow others to treat you. this is what I'm talking about. Because you can have all the money in the world. You can be wealthy. You can be successful. You can have a PhD, but that don't mean you love yourself just yet. So that's why I wanted to strip that part, because, some people are like, well, I'm successful. Yeah. But at the end of the day, how do you value yourself? How do you value others? And how do you allow others to treat you? Because again, many people have money, many people have status, many people have education, but fail to appreciate themselves to their core. See, sometimes we forget that many people are living behind a mask. It doesn't matter how successful they are. And so that's why I didn't want to talk about that part. And what I realized is that I want you guys to take an overall look at your life. And, because this part is really important, because many of you may seen past disappointment. You may have seen past pain and disappointment. You may have experienced constant heartbreaks from relationships. You may have repeatedly kept allowing the wrong person in your life or back in your life. You may have found yourself continuously going against what your intuition was telling you. Okay. You may found yourself attempting to be available for emotional, unavailable people, which causes you to end up emotionally damaged, right? You kept taking back someone after you knew you shouldn't have. And you believed that doing all you could make them love you, but all it did was cause you to unlove yourself. Let me know if that makes sense. Because here's the thing. When you don't learn the importance of loving yourself, you have the tendency to tolerate things due to your inability to recognize your self-worth. And I need for you guys to understand this. You know what I'm saying? And for many people, and not all, but for many people, many of us are aware, may have a slight level of awareness of what we may be dealing with. But the real reason is why. Why are you allowing something when you know it's unacceptable behavior? Like, why are you tolerating something when you know it's unacceptable? Or better yet, why are you overlooking what's there? Because we do this. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm telling you guys this because I did it too. You know what I mean? And when a person lacks loving themselves, eventually it creates a self-hatred about you that you haven't even allowed yourself to see within yourself. You don't really love and accept yourself as you are. You don't treat yourself with love. You don't treat yourself with compassion, no level of understanding or no kind of acceptance. You believe that instead of being true to your authentic self, you will risk her or even him for the sake of a false love from someone else. So, you will attempt to mold yourself into someone you think you're supposed to be in order to be loved. So in other words, you don't believe that who you are as you are isn't enough. That's what you believe. And so it's important to understand. I always tell my clients, I tell anybody this, that your uniqueness is what makes you unique. And I'll be going over this more in my workshop on Saturday for free. If you guys haven't signed up, please make sure you do. You know what I mean? So your uniqueness is what makes you unique. And those who love you, and here's the kicker. For those who love you, they won't just accept you, but they will embrace you. You see what I'm saying? That's a difference. Like, you can accept something, but when somebody embraces you just for who you are, as you are, your personality, your character, just the loyalty you have, just the type of person you have, that's what somebody does when they really just honor the type of individual you are. And so when we're going against the true core of who we are, and we're showing up in these relationships being something totally different, I'm convinced that we haven't established a real self-love of ourselves. What I realize is this: nothing authentic can come from something inauthentic. Does that make sense? It's like everybody wants something real, but nobody wants to show up real, right? And so what I realize is that if we haven't discovered the importance of loving ourselves just yet, what kind of relationships do we think we're going to be involving ourselves in? And when I say loving yourself, I'm talking about all of you. The past you, the current you, the present you, the crazy side of you, all of you, not parts of you, everything about you. And so I want to pose this question, and that question is, based upon how you treat yourself, is that what you're teaching others how to treat you? And you know you more than anybody. And this is the thing. This is why I tell people, like, without the cameras, without anything else, based upon how you treat yourself, is that the representation on how you let others treat you? Is that the foundation? And is that foundation working for you? Malia said, makes perfect sense. She said, a superficial relationship. Right. And so what happens is we're building a relationship on an inauthentic foundation because we're not even showing up being ourselves. And so sometimes we can be breaking our own heart because we don't believe who we are as we are is enough. We don't believe that our creator made us perfectly in his image, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? We feel like we got to change and mold, and there's nothing wrong with growth. There's nothing wrong with evolving, right? But when you got to change your whole character, when you got to change your whole personality, when you got to act like you cool with something when you know you're not, when you have to sit up here and go against your boundaries, that's a person who's showing a representation that, hey, you can treat me any kind of way you want because I'm going to accept it because I don't believe that I'm enough to be loved. So I'm going to minimize myself just so you can accept me. Let me know if that makes sense. And so we have to stop doing that part. You know what I mean? That's the stuff that we have to stop doing. You know what I mean? And so that's number one. That's number one. Okay. The second reason on how you could be breaking your own heart is that chances are you could be playing it safe. Right? I want you guys to type that below. You could be playing it safe. Jody Hutchins said, how does one love themselves when they don't know how to? I'm going to come back and revisit that question because that's a very good question, Jody. Very good question. The second one is chances are you could be breaking your own heart because you're playing it safe. And I put this down because I thought it was really powerful because sometimes we believe that staying somewhere that we know we shouldn't stay makes sense. Like, we know it don't make sense, but because it's what we know and because it's familiar and because it's habitual, we'll stay. So let me be clear when I'm saying this, because even outside of the relationship area of playing it safe, because playing it safe can become viral. That's what people don't understand. Like, when you start settling and when you start playing it safe, it can become a virus where it spreads in your life, where it can be a job that you're settling for, that you're playing it safe for. It can be finances. It can be friendships that we find ourselves always playing it safe for. And what happens is we believe that playing it safe is protecting you. That's what you're thinking. You're thinking playing it safe is protecting me, but in reality, it's actually hurting you. You know what I mean? Because chances are when we're playing it safe, or when we think we're playing it safe, we're thinking that this is about being cautious. But in reality, it's a lot more deeper than that. Because I'm going to tell you what I find for most people. I find that fear causes people to play it safe. Like, you'll rather stay somewhere familiar and be unfulfilled than take the road unknown, because the road that's unknown requires you to get uncomfortable. Right? That's the road less traveled. That's the road of the unfamiliar. That's the road that's going to stretch you. That's the road that's going to, cause you to walk alone. See, a lot of people don't want to do that part, even though they want change, but they're afraid to walk alone. See, we think that when we take this unfamiliar, it sounds cute, but I'm going to tell you something. Traveling that road of the unknown, or the road less traveled, it can be a very lonely road in some seasons. And many of us avoid that. So we choose not to do it. And so we find ourselves playing it safe. It's the journey that the people around you may not seek or receive. You may not receive the approval of those people who are close to you. And I'm not talking about your social media friends. I'm not talking about your followers. I'm talking about people who are really close to you, the people who don't want to change, the people who cool with where they are. But you know to your core, like, it got to be more than life than this. But you won't go because people around you may not validate it. They won't give you a permission slip. And so instead of you knowing that you don't need nobody's permission, you're going to find yourself playing it safe. You know what I mean? Let me know if that makes sense. And I'm going to tell you something, because as a coach, I get a lot of DMs. I get emails. I even get people who get on clarity calls with me. And one of the questions that I always ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, right? How bad do you want it? People tell me 9s. People tell me 10s. They say, MsTonya, I love your message and it resonated with me. This is what people tell me, but I just don't know what to do. And so sometimes I'll recommend my services, or I may even offer something free, because I have free stuff that I offer. And then they'll come up to all the reasons as to why they can't do it. And then guess what? Months later, they are still where they don't want to be, because they playing it safe. Like, everybody wants something new, or everybody desires something new, but the work that's required, everybody's not willing to do it. You know what I'm saying? And what happens is, what I see so often is that many people are so afraid to take a real chance on themselves. They're afraid to place all bets on them. You know what I'm saying? They haven't developed the faith of a mustard seed to just make that decision to say, you know what? I don't know all the answers, but one answer I do know, this ain't it. And I got to make a conscious choice to choose. And many people are afraid to do that. Let me tell you something. One thing that I realized about myself, and let me know if y'all feel me on this, because I know I'm not the only one. I will go to the trenches for my kids. I'll go to the trenches for my friends. Shoot, when I was married, it wasn't really nothing that I wouldn't do. But when it came to me, I used to limit myself. I didn't put all that, all bets on me like I would do everybody else. That didn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? I would, and I realized with myself is that I didn't believe in myself like I believed in other people. And so what happened was I found myself playing it safe, really, for a lot of my life. It was at the age of 34 when I realized that this ain't it. It was at the age of 34 that I made a conscious choice. So this was just 6 years ago. I was 34 years old. And I'm going to tell you something. I had my degree. I had my graduate's degree. It had nothing to do with education. That's why I removed this. What I realized was I was still playing it safe because I feared the unknown. I feared that, man, nobody else around me is doing what I'm doing or doing what I would like to do. And I didn't even know what that thing was at the moment. I just knew that I couldn't be there anymore. I just knew it wasn't working for me. I didn't like the results that kept showing up in my life. And so what I realized is that some people are very fearful of making better decisions that they know could really lead them to a better life, because there's an inner belief of them thinking that they really just don't deserve it. So I'm going to tell you something. When you do stuff like this, it leads you to a place of self-sabotage. And what happens is when you go down that path of self-sabotage, you will always go against what you know is better for you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you will ruin anything because a part of you just don't think you can have it. You know what I'm saying? It's like you will turn left, like you will go the opposite direction when you know you need to be turning right. You know what I mean? It's like you will talk yourself out of doing something that is actually best for you. And so I want to pose this question to you. And the question is, am I making safe decisions or am I making fearful decisions? See, those are two different things. Because let me explain something to you. I'm going to tell you the difference between these decisions. A safe decision is saying, if I go outside and I see a loose pit bull that I don't know, okay, that's barking, that's howling, I ain't going out there. I'm staying my behind in the house. That's a safe decision. However, if I'm in an unhealthy, toxic, emotionally abusive, physically abusive relationship, and I'm saying to myself, you know what? I know this relationship doesn't serve me. However, I really don't know the road ahead. And because I'm familiar with what's already in front of me, I'm just going to stay here because I don't know what the next chapter of my life looks like. That's a fearful decision. Those are two different things. And so that's why I always ask people, are you making a safe decision or are you making a fearful decision? And I know it's not the fact that this stuff is easy. I'm not trying to paint a picture like this is easy. It can be probably one of the most challenging decisions to make. However, you have to look at you have to look at like where you are and how long you've been there. You know what I mean? And ask yourself, based on how long I've been there, I want you to double that. Can I be here in the next, like, let's just say you've been in something for 10 years. Can you be in the same position for another 10? And see, that's when you have to make a conscious choice to say, I don't want to be here another 10 years. Because I'm going to tell you something, it's easy to do this type of stuff. It's people who've been in stuff for decades, y'all, and probably thought they would never do it. And guess what? It's probably one of the most hardest things for them to do now is leave because of all the investing that they have done. So I know this very well. So I'm not trying to minimize the fact that it's hard. Of course it's hard. I'm not going to lie. But what's harder? That's what you really have to ask yourself. Okay. Jennifer said familiar pain. Right. It's a familiar pain. And what happens is when we're familiar with something, even if it's painful, even if it's hurtful, we'll stay because we know what we're going to get. Malia said, I did it for 14 years, no more. I can't help you if I'm broken. Yeah. You're not that's a real thing. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But I want you to ask yourself that because the truth of the matter is that we're heading into July and we got another half of the year. And what happens is people, they go into these new years thinking that it's just going to be different. But the new year doesn't automatically create a new you. You know what I mean? You have to make a choice to evolve into a better version of you. You know what I mean? So that's the second one. The second one is you could be playing it safe. The third reason on why you could be breaking your own heart is that you're not being honest about what it is that you really want. That's another thing, right? You could be breaking your own heart by just not being honest about what it is you really want. It's like when you're not honest, it's almost like you downplay yourself on purpose. You know what I mean? Like you really, this ain't what you want, but you'll minimize it anyway. Like what I realize is that when I ask people what they want, they either speak so small or they are doubtful of even having what it is that they want. You know what I'm saying? And so what happens is when you're not honest about what it is that you want, it actually causes you to settle for what you never wanted. Like seriously, that's what it does. I mean, it's like you go along with things that you just really don't want to do. It's like you get into these relationships that you already know don't make sense. You already know it ain't going nowhere, but you do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to tell you something about, and because I work with women, and I'm not saying that this discredit guys, but because I work with women, one of the things that I really emphasize is that, you got to get clear on what you need. You need to be clear on what you need and what you desire for your life. And what I mean is that you got to kill the noise of not what your friends want, not what your parents thought you should be and who you should be and what you should do, and not even your kids. Like sometimes we have the tendency to minimize what we want for the sake of being accepted, for the sake of being approved and validated, for the sake of just belonging. Like we will do that. Because when you want that type of validation, you will minimize what you want, or you'll just go with the flow to try to keep some level of peace when in reality, your life is unpeaceful because that's not really what you want. And so what I came to realize is that I had to be willing to risk what I know would bring me a level of joy, what I knew would bring me a level of fulfillment. You know what I'm saying? More than anything. And it wasn't because I didn't care about other people and what they needed or what they wanted of me, but I had to make sure that I did not make myself be an option anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I realized that when it came to relationships, I downplayed what I want, just to be accepted. I realized that even in the workforce, and I've shared this with quite a few of people who've been following me, I remember I downplayed my salary and my position just so I wouldn't get rejected. So it's not just about relationships per se. It's about really looking at your whole life as, just looking at your whole, all the areas of your life as a whole, and seeing, like, have you been minimizing yourself your whole life just to be approved by other people? You know what I'm saying? And so when you, like I tell people, when you know what you need, or when you're clear on what you need, and when you're clear on what you want, you realize what you don't want. And what you don't want is very powerful, because what happens is when you know it's something that you don't want, you don't entertain those things because you ain't got time. Like, you don't have time. You realize that your time is too precious to waste on things that you don't want. I always tell people, time is your most precious commodity, and how you utilize it is very, very important. And so what happens is you don't just entertain something for the sake of entertaining it. You don't have something around you or in your life just to say you got it. If it's not meaningful, if it's not valuable, if it's not something that brings a level of mutualism and reciprocity, then you really choose not to entertain it. And this is why knowing what you want is very, 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 very important. And I always tell people, like, when you get clear on what you want, you prepare. You make room for it. You start to declutter. You start to move stuff out your way when you really know what you need. Like, real talk. Like, when I realized that I was breaking my own heart, I started decluttering, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. I didn't know everything, but I'm going to tell you something. I know what I didn't want. And knowing what you don't want is probably your most important thing. You know what I mean? And so even though, because I'm going to tell you what I see a lot. Sometimes people entertain people because it's better than nothing. They'll rather have a piece of somebody than nobody. And I'm going to tell you something, when you operate from that place, you're operating from a place of scarcity. You're operating from a place of lack. You're thirsty. I ain't said that in a long time, but it's real. And I know we don't want to own that, but it's real. Some of us are just flat out thirsty. And when you're thirsty, you'll drink absolutely anything. And so when when you break your own heart, like, some of us know, like, this don't even make sense, but we just can't stand the thought of being rejected or, feeling like somebody wouldn't want us. And I'm telling you, when you operate from that place, you become a pick me, like, got almost with your hand raised. It ain't really like raised, but the way you act, the way you show up, the energy you give off, that's the type of energy you give off. And so what happens is, we don't really entertain the things that really compliments us because we haven't developed that level of self-love, which I talked about from number one. And so that's real. I mean, and the reason why I'm saying this stuff, because that was me too. I didn't even realize that I was causing my own hurt. There was sometimes I knew better, but then there was sometimes I just wasn't aware. I used to think that everybody else was the problem, basically. But then I had to see where I was operating from internally. There was a part of me that just really didn't think I deserved better. And I hated to say that. I hated to own that part of myself because I was an educated Black woman, right? I had my degrees, I worked out. I mean, from the outside, you didn't see it, which is why I keep telling people, don't let this status and stuff fool y'all, because that stuff doesn't necessarily mean that you know your worth. That can just be a layer of other things, right? So that's why I realized, like, okay, why am I doing this to myself? And I just had to get deep. I had to get raw. I had to get real with me. And so many of us, sometimes we are out of these relationships, but we're still continuously breaking our own heart. See, when you exit out of these relationships, that's half the battle. The rest of it is how you allow it to impact you. Okay. And what that means is that sometimes you have to just go under construction and do a level of deep work within yourself. You know what I mean? And that's what I didn't do. I realized, like, yeah, I don't want to be with him no more. That it wasn't about me wanting to go back. It had nothing to do with him, but my mindset didn't pivot. And because my mindset didn't pivot and my emotions didn't get stable, in other words, I was very emotionally unintelligent and I didn't know how to manage my emotions. So I found myself dealing with a lot of the same stuff that I didn't want to deal with. And I woke up and said, you know what? It got to be more to this. I didn't know all the answers. I just knew I didn't want to be there no more. I realized that I was, self-sabotaging. I realized that I really didn't love myself like I quoted. Like I tell people, you can quote it, you can shout it, you can post the memes on Facebook, you can do all of that. But at the end of the day, based on how you treat yourself, I can tell you right now, that's what you're teaching people. That's what you're doing. You're letting people treat you based upon how you treat yourself. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. And based on how I moved, I taught people how to treat me. And so I just want to make sure I'm talking about this tonight because many of us, this ain't about nobody else. This ain't about other people breaking your heart. I know other people may have, right? But we can't dwell on that. And the reason being is because this is your life and you have to make an intentional choice now to say, okay, am I going to keep breaking my heart? You know what I mean? Like that part is more important than anything because now it's about you taking a level of ownership on how you want to see your life moving forward from this point on. It doesn't discount how people treat you. I never minimize that type of stuff. But what I am saying is that the level of ownership we have to take is not giving people that kind of power where we allow what has happened to us to be like the foundation on how we function. You see what I'm saying? Like it's still your right to rebuild. It's your right to heal. It's your right to look within to see what's going on. It's your right to build a self-love. It's your right to stop playing it safe. It's your right to say, you know what, this is what I desire for my life and make the choice to go after it, as opposed to believing that because somebody hurt you, that you're going to stay stagnant, even though you're no longer with them. I always tell people, if you're going to leave a relationship, don't leave a relationship and stay in a place that you don't want to be. The best revenge is the focus and the redirection on you. You know what I mean? So let me know if that makes sense. Malia said, knowing what you don't want is the first step to discovering you. Yeah. Figure out what you don't want. Even if you don't know everything you want, write down what you don't want. That's your right. You know what I mean? Like that's what people don't understand. It's your right to have a joy in your life. You know what I'm saying? You do have a right to be happy. My divorce solution said that you have a right to be happy. Doesn't mean everything's going to go perfect, right? But we know what isn't serving us. I always tell people, do an energy check. Your energy will tell you everything you need to know. Your energy will tell you when something's off. Don't ignore that. That's communication. Pay attention. And see, this is why many of us are probably so depleted now, because we never paid attention to what our body was responding to. Malia said a Band-Aid so you don't have to deal with yourself. Yeah. Jennifer said, I poured myself into the relationship and they walked away and I walked away too. I had to find myself again. Yeah. Like finding yourself is a real journey. It's interesting because I'm actually having a free workshop called Finding Her. It's an online workshop that I'm having on Saturday from 9 to 12. Okay. I'm only doing it one time. And if you know that you need some help to get you on that journey, then click on the link in my bio and register. It's a free workshop. Okay. Sharonda said depleted and depressed. Yeah, it is. Because what happens is when you keep pouring into these one-sided relationships, when you're saying, man, I know this is not what we think we're doing, but we're actually telling this person, I'll do whatever it takes for you to love me. even if it causes me to unlove myself, even if it causes me to be depleted, even if it takes everything away from me. I'm willing to do that for you. That is not love, y'all. That's dysfunction. You know, my pastor, he says this a lot. Love is free, but the level of access to you isn't. And what happens is many of us are giving people access to us that do not need it. You know what I mean? And it has nothing to do with you hating them. You got to know where people are and you have to meet them there. Meaning that you got to accept them for who they are and not for who you want them to be. Because what happens is if we think my love could fix him or my love could fix her, then I'm telling you, you become a rehab center and you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. And you're not built for that. That's not your power to do. And so you have to just know that where they are is just where they are. And the question is, based upon where they are, is it a place where you can not only just meet them there, but accept them for who they are, even if they don't show you anything else different? And if they're not able to, and you know that over time this could be damaging to you, then this is where you got to step into a place of consciousness and choose very maturely. And use your discernment. Like you guys have a lot of discernment, but sometimes we lose this discernment when it comes to relationships. You know what I mean? Someone said, how will someone else value you if you don't value yourself? What a great workshop you are offering. Is Catherine from My Divorce Solution. You sound great. Hey, Catherine, how are you? You know, you do have to value yourself first. I know and I know we think we don't or we shouldn't, but I'm telling you, it's an energy that sometimes we don't even think we're giving off. And I'm going to tell you something. If someone doesn't value you, don't take it personal. See, the problem is sometimes we take this stuff so personal. Why they just don't see it? Listen, y'all, everybody's not going to see your value. That's what you have to get. You have to know that everybody's not going to see your value, but don't take it personal. You're not for everybody. And that's okay. It's okay that you're not for everybody, right? Like, don't be like, man, something wrong with me. No, just be like, you know what? They don't see it. And respect it and walk away. I can convince them. Don't do that. Don't go into this place of thinking you can, if I can convince this person that I'm good enough, they'll see it. Nope, don't do it. Because then that's when you put yourself in a position to get hurt. And then you come across of an energy of desperation. You know what I mean? And I know people don't want to own that part, but y'all, if you really want to like be made well and get through these types of things, you do have to come to that level of truth. And see, I used to think because I was a good woman, everybody should know. Girl, listen, everybody ain't gonna see that stuff. And I learned to not take it personal. Why? I'm not going to be for everybody, you know, and truthfully, people who were interested in me, I wasn't interested in them. Right. So what that meant is that we're not going to be for everybody. You're not a one size fits all. So don't operate as such. You know what I mean? Someone said, you know, nothing is wrong with you. Rejection is just redirection. Yeah. Sometimes we feel like we tie that to our worth. When they say they don't want us, we kind of connect that to our worth. And I'm going to tell you something, you could do anything, but it's not going to be enough for the person who isn't the person who's supposed to be in your life. Really, it doesn't matter what you do. You can give up everything. You can deplete your whole bank account. You know, you can sacrifice everything of yourself. It doesn't matter. It has really nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with where they are within themselves. You know what I mean? They could have their own trauma. They could just be takers. I mean, we don't know. We can go on with a list of scenarios on why they could be doing what they're doing, but don't go down that rabbit hole of trying to figure it out. Just know that I'm not going to take this personal. And the more you lean into your discernment, the quicker you can make these decisions so you don't invest. Because see, I'm going to tell you something. When you start investing in a person, you want an ROI. You want your return. And when you don't get that return, you start to, you know, feel resentful because you're like, I did all of this and I get nothing. I'm empty handed. And like, I think her name was Sharonda, you become depleted because you gave up everything. You even sacrifice your self-respect and your self-dignity See, that's when that's when we crossing the line. But what happens is the more you invest, the more you expect an ROI. And when you don't get it, you become resentful. You want revenge. You want them to pay you for everything that you poured into the relationship. And what happens is when you put 5 and 10 and 20 years in something like that, of course you're going to feel something. You're going to probably be very bitter about it. And so the more we lean into our discernment and stop ignoring what we know to be very accurate, we can make these decisions a lot more quicker. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. I really do. Let me know if you have any questions. I know, I think it was Jody, right? I want to say Jody, I don't know if you're still on. You said, how does one love themselves when they don't know how to? See, here's the thing about loving yourself. Loving yourself starts today. See, a lot of us think I need to be in a certain place in my life to love myself. You need to love yourself right now. Loving yourself is a journey. It's not a destination. So you have, in other words, what that means is that you have to make a choice to know who you are as you are at this present moment is still enough to be loved. You don't have to meet a criteria to be loved. Remember, y'all, love is free. Even the Bible says love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? And the reason why this type of stuff is so important, because we based our value on what we have or who we are or what we do or who we're attached to. And when that stuff is no longer there and present, we feel like our value has declined. But this is why loving yourself at this present moment is so vital, because we always think if this happens or if that happens, then I can love myself. No. I'm gonna tell you something, Jody. When I lost 80 pounds, and I know this may sound really crazy, I lost 80 pounds and I still felt like I needed to lose more weight. And what I realized about that was that psychologically, I felt like, I used to feel like if I lost 80 pounds, I would be happy. And I wasn't. There was still a part of me that felt like I needed to lose more weight. And so what I realized was that, honey, big or small, you still got to love yourself, Tonya, and appreciate the fact that you want to lose weight. However, just because you lose weight I felt good, like in a sense of I knew I needed to from a health standpoint, but I always felt like I needed to lose more. I just felt like I wasn't enough. I still battled with that after losing 80 pounds. And if you saw my pictures, they were amazing, but psychologically it wasn't connecting. And so I had to just do certain small things. I had to appreciate the things about me. I had to stop trying to feel like I needed to be more of something else to be loved. And so I had to learn to love myself for who I was, how God created me, my imperfections, the things that I do well. I started honing into that. I stopped comparing myself to other people, thinking that, if I had this, I would be. No, you won't. You won't. I just allowed myself to appreciate the person I am, right? At that present moment. It's really that simple. It wasn't always just that easy. It is that simple. But I had to reframe. But on that journey of making the choice, I had to reframe my mindset, Jody. Like rewiring my programming was very important. Me looking at what I got as opposed to not being so concerned with what I didn't have, embracing the authentic part of me. Like I realized, I used to battle just with, maybe my personality a lot. I really battle with my personality a lot. I know a lot of people didn't know that, but I did. And I used to always be like, whoa, why am I so much like this? Why I can't be more like, well, that's just not me. And so the more I started leaning into who I really was and stopped trying to be someone I'm not, I really fell in love with that woman. Like I really do love me. I do. It was a time where I used to always look at everything that was wrong with me. Now I just focus on everything that's right about me. And I'm going to tell you something, even in my weaknesses, I still love that about me, because even when I know in the places where I may not be as strong, I can rely on other people to be that strength for me. And I don't take it personal. I don't try to be perfect. I love myself for who I am. And I'm going to tell you something, Jody, it's a journey. I write affirmations. I read stuff. I try my best to weed out things that really isn't good for, for my ears. Seriously, like it's a process, honey. But the first choice is to love yourself who you are as you are at this present moment. No matter what you've done, no matter how many times you've done it or how long have you done it. Because what happens is when we start to be like, man, but I've been like this for so long. It don't matter. See, the power you have is knowing that you have the ability to create. And I'm going to talk about that on Saturday. See, many of us don't know who we are, at all. We be like, I don't know who I am. The truth is that many of us don't know who we are because we never found ourselves to begin with. And the truth is that when you really find that authentic you won't lose him or her because you work too hard to birth that person or awaken, that person, because that person is already in you. It's already there. It's not that finding you is not an external act. A lot of that is internal, but it's been covered and masked with so many other different things. And so the first thing you have to do, honey, is really make the choice to love yourself at this present moment while you're on the journey of becoming. Does that make sense? So as we keep evolving, you still love yourself. It doesn't change. You know how it's funny because, I was actually literally talking to my friend the other day and we was talking about love and all these different things. And he was like, well, why do you love your kids? I said, I just do. I don't have a reason. I just do. And I realized that if I just love my kids just as they are, then why am I not loving myself the same way? Like, seriously, like somebody like, why you love your kids? You be like, I mean, I just love them. They my babies, I just love them. They can get on my nerves, but I love them. It's the same way with you. That's how you have to give yourself that unconditional love. And many of us are loving ourselves conditionally. Okay. So I hope that kind of answers your question, because it's a powerful question, but it's like, love just is, right? And as you're deciding to go on the journey of evolving, know that I'm going to love myself right now as I'm growing into the woman I desire to be, right? It's not okay, I'm going to love myself after I get to this point. No, you're not. When you make the choice to do it now, you'll start to fall in love with yourself. You really will. Because what happens is if you don't, you'll always be looking for somebody else to. And when you're looking for somebody else to, that means you'll be willing to sacrifice anything just to have it. And it's not worth it. Jennifer said, I didn't love myself and I attracted people who didn't love me either. I had to change that. I love myself now, but I had to learn to. Yeah, you did. You have to learn to, because many of us have been told things about ourselves that really isn't accurate. I mean, some of this stuff comes from childhood. Doesn't mean that people didn't have good intentions. It just means that some of us have been told things that really isn't accurate with who we really are to our core. And so we have to awaken that voice, because that voice has been dead for a long time. And so that's why it can be hard to really love the authentic you, because no one ever told you to. And so you have to learn. I totally agree, Jennifer. You have to learn. I'm excited to meet you too, Catherine. I am. And so I just really hope, I hope that makes sense. Are there any other questions about anything? I know I kind of went, kind of long tonight, but maybe this was something that we just all needed to tune in on. Just a reminder, I am having a virtual workshop on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I will be talking about finding her after breakup. One of the most, I hear I lost myself so much. I hear that a lot, and I understand it. However, we need to do something about it. And so I just decided to do a 3-hour workshop. And if you know that this is something you need, and this is showing love for yourself, right? By pouring into you, by receiving information that you need for your well-being, then register. The link is in my bio on Instagram, and for Facebook, the link is in the I think it's at the very top in the caption. And so, if you know you need this, if you know it's your time, then invest. I mean, if it's free, why not invest? You know what I mean? Like, what you doing on Saturday morning? Invest in yourself, because you really need to invest in yourself. Someone said, Tonya, you are so great and a blessing. Thank you. I met you a few months ago doing a self-care boot camp with Journal Jot and Jive. Thank you for this tonight. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I actually, on Facebook, I put the link in the comments for you to register. So if you know this has been a blessing, make sure you share it. It will still be out. So if you want to catch the replay, catch the replay. Okay. I really appreciate you all tuning in. If you have a question that you want me to bring to the live, you can DM me. I keep all names anonymous. I don't display names. I don't call out names. But if you know that there's something that you could be battling with behind these cameras, and you need something that can really help you, get through it, DM me, and I'll look over it, and I will do my best to provide you with a high level of information, not just some tips and tricks. Okay, I don't do all that. I want to give you something that's going to stick to you. You know what I mean? So let me know if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so thank you all again so much for tuning in tonight. You all have a wonderful and amazing night. Get some rest, and we will talk soon.